Radio West Middlesex, with the perfect bedside manner.
Hello there, I'm Lorraine Kelly, and I hope you're enjoying listening to this wonderful radio station, and get well soon. Take care of yourself.
Free Time on Radio West Middlesex.
You're listening to Radio West Middlesex. This is Free Time with me, James Hoff. There's a local appeal going on to restore and resurrect Hanworth Park House. And on the phone with me this evening is Richard Griffiths, who's the chairman of Hanworth Park House. Good evening, Richard.
Hello, James.
How are you?
Hi. Good, thank you.
So tell us all about the appeal and what you're trying to do.
So Hanworth Park House, for the ones who don't know it, because it is hidden in the middle of Hanworth Park. It was built in 1802 by the Duke of St Albans, and it was owned by two families who were quite wealthy at the time. And the last owner was Alfred Lafone, who was an MP for Parliament, and he died at the house and had a family of 9 children. After private ownership in the early 1900s, it was handed over to the British Red Cross. So the British Red Cross owned it during the First World War to look after the injured soldiers that came back from the front line, and they were looked after until they could go home. After the First World War, the Whitehead family bought it, who were based in Richmond, but they needed an airfield to build planes and take off safely because the premises in Richmond were getting too small. It's London's first air park. This is the days before Heathrow was even thought about, so when Heathrow did come around, that was the nail in the coffin to the end of flying at Hanworth, because of it only being about 2 or 3 miles from the perimeter fence.
And if you walk through Hanworth Air Park at the moment, the house is quite hard to see because it's surrounded by trees, isn't it? But you can see glimpses of the top of the roof.
You can see glimpses of especially, the corner of the house, but especially the clock tower at the back. More so in the winter when the leaves fall down. It's surrounded by about 7 acres of woodland. Most of it is self-seeded over the last 30 years, because it used to be open plan to the actual park, and people used to wander in from their planes and use Hanworth Air Park as a clubhouse stroke hotel.
And why not knock it down and create a larger park?
It's listed, so it's Grade 2. We have tried to enhance it to Grade 2 star, but we don't think that's going to happen. But so it's been empty for 25 years, so since 1992. It was closed by Hounslow Council, who owned it from the 1950s as a care home. So they used to have about 100 residents at any one time. But over the years, it became obvious that the house wasn't economical to run, and the house fell into a bad condition even before it closed in 1992. The very year it closed, it was put on Historic England's at-risk register straight away. And it's been empty ever since. And it's been owned by 4 developers, taking it in turns, literally, to try and save it. The site actually sits on Greenbelt land.
I see.
They've tried to turn it into hotels, but the current owner is actually transferring that planning development, which has been agreed by Boris Johnson, who was the mayor at the time, to now turn it into residential, because it's not feasible to build a hotel and connect it onto a historic house that needs multi-million-pound restoration.
And you and the Friends of Hanworth Park House, what are your main aims and what are you hoping to achieve?
So basically, as residents of Hanworth Park, we've just been fed up with 25 years or more failed attempts to try and restore the house and the site. Because, time is very limited now. It's only got about a year or 2 before it goes beyond repair, which was confirmed by Historic England this year. So we came along and created a group of local residents who are really interested in the park and the house itself. So we have 15 to 20 people on our committee who are constantly working away and campaigning, meeting people, and just getting the word out even more, because Hanworth Park House is hidden, it's slightly forgotten, but has national and international history. So we've been campaigning since mid-2017 when we started Friends of Hanworth Park House, and we've used many platforms to campaign and get publicity. For example, BBC London, on radio, just very recently when I interviewed Steve Curran, leader of Hounslow Council. So we had Channel 5 do their celebrity goat hunt last year with Rylan and, for example, Duncan from Blue in major newspapers. So the Evening Standard, the Metro, and it's just really getting the word out about the campaign and what we've been doing and about the history of the house. And we've been networking at special events. So just recently we went to Hounslow Promise, which has been launched by Seema Malhotra, MP for Feltham and Heston. It's been a massive support for us. She's helped us campaign and get the word out. We're just constantly looking for opportunities to campaign publicly, to put pressure on certain stakeholders to increase the community access to the house and to open the grounds up. And the vision is to create a community hub for Hanworth Park House so it becomes totally accessible for the public. So we have a museum, a cafe, and an education centre for young and old and disabilities. There'll be rooms to hire, especially in our grand ballroom. Arts and crafts, so we're looking at the Arts Council and various arts organisations within Hounslow Borough. And it'd be just a lovely historic setting for the west side of Hounslow Borough, because unfortunately all the good ones are on the other side, like Boston Manor, Chiswick, yes, and so on.
Quite. Stay with us, Richard, because we'll be finding out a little bit more about the appeal and also finding out about two exciting events to support it. It's Middlesex, and I'm talking to Richard Griffiths from the Friends of Hanworth Park House. So, Richard, tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing to support the appeal.
So, first of all, we don't actually need to raise the money, because that's what we get asked first by a lot of people. So the development will be saved by building something called enabling. So it's an enabling development. So some buildings, apartments will be built within the grounds of Hanworth Park House, and that will enable around 10 to 12 million pounds to restore or replicate the house, bring in the museum and the cafe and everything that I mentioned before, and also to increase access to the park itself, because the park has fallen into a little bit of a bad condition, and the park will benefit from landscape gardening, hopefully new heritage trails around the Longford River.
Be good to put some life back into that park, because it is a great expanse of land, isn't it? And as a park, I think it would do the local community real justice.
What we get out of it will be massive, and we hope it should be the biggest community hub in West London.
And to promote the work that you've been doing, there's some events coming up in the local area. Tell us about those two events.
So our first event is coming up on August the 18th at Hanworth Park House from 2 o'clock. So it's free to enter. Just come along. There's no parking on site, unfortunately, but you can park on local roads and just walk in. And it's a theatre play outside, so open air theatre being done by Tales Be Told, who are a theatre group based in Hounslow. And they got a heritage lottery grant to do this play. So they have local schools taking part with their students, and at the moment they're rehearsing about women in war, and a lot of it will be based on stories and things that have actually happened in Hanworth, Feltham and Bedfont, and that will be played out in front of the historic house, and it'll be a lovely occasion. So we encourage everybody to come and watch the play and learn. Bring your children, your grandparents, your mothers and your fathers. It's great for every age.
And a ready-made set as well, so no expense on any scenery or anything like that, because it's provided for you.
It is, because the house has some massive grand steps outside leading up to the house. So it's actually a stage in itself, and historically it's been used as a stage throughout the decades when aviation pilots have been awarded the King's Cup, for example, by the American ambassador. Amelia Earhart landed at the house, just outside the house, and walked up the steps and had a photograph taken. So the stage is really the steps with the lovely backdrop of the house.
Let's pray for the weather for you as well.
Yeah, so that's the one thing we can't plan for, unfortunately.
Let's not talk about it. And something you have every year, which kind of brings the community together and a little bit of nostalgia for motor fans, is your summer fair.
Yes, so this is actually our second event of this kind at Hanworth Park House. Our first one was last July, which was attended by up to 1,500 people. So we're doing it again, but this year in September. So September the 8th of September, from 11 o'clock till 3 o'clock. And there's going to be classic cars of all types, military, motorbikes, minis, Aston Martins, you name it. There's the community stalls. We've got a large stage with entertainment. So we've got local dancers. We've got a band called Jump 66. We've got barbecues by local scouts. We've got Feltham Arts. We've got wartime songs sung by Tales Be Told Theatre, and lots more. But everything's free. There's a little bit, to pay once you get inside for any food or drink, which all goes towards fundraising for local groups.
Great. Well, good luck with the two events. Women at War, the immersive outdoor performance on the steps of Hanworth Park House, is on Sunday the 18th of August from 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and the Classic Car Show and Summer Fair is on Sunday the 8th of September between 11 a.m. and 3 in the afternoon. Richard Griffiths, Chairman of Hanworth Park House, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, James. Thank you.